So hi everyone, Dave Dobbs here. It's the 18th of August 2018 today, and I'm not too sure what the date is going to be when I actually release this video, but just to sort of like clarify that, it's 4:57 p.m. British summertime. Right now I'm in Glastonbury actually. Significant day. It's my dad's birthday. Happy birthday, Dad. Yesterday was the 17th of August, and yesterday marked 1 year exactly since the ESO, the European Southern Observatory, it was the 17th that they recorded an electromagnetic, I don't know if it's a wave or a pulse, that they attributed to what they said were two neutron stars colliding 230 million light years away, I believe they said. Seems a very long way away. And caused such a big burst of energy that we picked it up in all those meters. And yet at the same time, I don't know if you remember, but on the 17th of August 2017, there was also a very unusual sighting. I think it was over Brazil. It could have been Argentina, but I think you're pretty much sure it was Brazil. And there were many other sightings of a very similar thing on the same day. And I'd got down on my 200-day timeline, which I've been this kind of the center point of my videos. Would have been, I think, I always say, there's so many dates, I get so confused sometimes, and it's very difficult sometimes with my videos because I bring so many dates into my videos. But overall, I think the date from the 5th of August 2011, running a 200-day timeline, which is how I worked out all these different sightings and how I've been managing to predict these sightings. It's nothing really clever other than just the 5th of August 2011, 200 days, and you come up with many dates fall upon that every 200 days if you continue it long enough. And was it the 15th? Yeah, I think it was the 15th of August 2017 would have been the 200-day point. I was very surprised at that time when it flew by that it was that big. If it was that, and even at that point, I was questioning my own model. And the model that I use is not about being right or wrong, correct or incorrect. Far from that. It's just a desperate attempt to try and keep analysing this odd pattern, why this thing has this odd pattern. And I've tried to work it in many different ways. And those of you who watch my model and that sort of stuff and see this information I'm trying to bring together and trying to also to understand what this thing is trying to tell us, if it's trying to tell us anything at all, because I've been having so many transmissions myself, in my own process, in my own writing process, and having parents that channel, and so I come into it from this very odd angle, and it's a very awkward thing, and because I feel very much like I'm exposing myself as a total madman, obviously, by talking about this, especially bringing in the aspects of kind of channel material and that sort of stuff. And trying to bring in, what fuels my kind of like my edge on this whole thing is this 200-day pattern that I've discovered. Not exactly 200 days, because obviously it changed. It changed on the 28th, 29th of March 2016. And remember, I'd made that video before and said that if this thing is moving away, then we expect this kind of a 200-day pattern. If this is really occurring and this thing really is on an exit trajectory, we expect it to turn into a 100-day pattern. That being said, this thing had changed from a 200-day to a 100-day pattern, and we'd had everything kind of buttoned down to a point of kind of moderately understanding its movements, and then we've just had the sequence of events that have just occurred over the since my last video, which was on the 17th of June 2018, just gone, which 4 days before the solstice. On the 21st, and we had this incredible sighting on the 21st, I think it was. I think it was World of Signs, and that really started it. And there was one report of tidal anomaly. There was one report, I believe it was also around about the 21st of June. Now, if you see that model, that place where on the 17th of June, where I predicted all the positions would be, and if you look at this picture of that, you can see that we're looking at the ecliptic plane as if we're looking straight down the top of the ecliptic plane. So we're seeing where everything is from directly above, but that's not giving us a kind of a 3D perspective, really, a fair 3D perspective there, because Planet X, in my opinion, is sitting below the ecliptic plane, and was at the 17th of June 2018, was on the far side of the solar system to where we were at that point. And Nibiru orbiting Planet X would have been in its what I call the 6 o'clock position, and it would have been sitting further below the ecliptic plane than Planet X itself, because the ecliptic plane, if you like, of Planet X, in my opinion, at that stage, and still at this stage really, they weren't level like this. If the ecliptic plane of our solar system was like this, flat like a pancake, I was expecting the ecliptic plane of Planet X to be sitting like that, at that angle. So Nibiru, at the lowest point, the furthest orbiting object of the Planet X system, would be at the lowest point if this was orbiting this whole system around here. And what's occurred is we seem to have just had another flyby. Now, I was expecting a flyby, if you like, as in it to come into view, but I wasn't expecting it to be as big as that. And this could obviously, this definitely could suggest that my entire model is incorrect. Totally, I can accept that. And yet, when I try to play with this information and juggle it around and try and move it in every which way I can, I cannot come up with another model. Now, that's quite easy because I'm just not equipped enough in what have I got to sort of like, I'm using basic animation ideas, I'm using some pretty basic ideas. I wouldn't call myself an astronomer in any way, except that actually all I seem to do is astronomical research. So I am an amateur astronomer without a doubt, just by the virtue of what I do and what I'm looking at here. I might be a bad astronomer, I might be a good amateur astronomer. Only time will tell really, but I certainly have had some sequence of success with flybys. But actually, most people would say, "Oh, you're wrong, because I'm, for a myriad of different reasons." And all I'm really trying to do here is charter it and trying to make sense of it and trying to offer the information in 3D kind of like models, so we can kind of keep looking at this and keep playing with this together and see if we can suddenly come together. Maybe we're all going to have some kind of group kind of upgrade, some raising of some consciousness at some point where we're all going to make sense of this and it's all going to become very clear and we're all going to be able to look at it. But so the first option is that I'm just plain wrong. The second well, if we go down the corridor that I'm wrong, and then we think, well, where could I be wrong? One of the possible ideas is that it's got a bigger orbit. That Nibiru going around Planet X has got a bigger orbit. That is a feasible. That is an option. That it's got a much bigger orbit, and that as it's because it's so big, Planet X is close to the Sun. It's got this bigger orbit that it actually goes right around the Sun. It goes right around our own Sun and around Planet X. It also. I struggle with that for so many reasons, but what we've just seen is with the recent flyby, you know, we saw the light go out in Serbia, we've seen all the red dust, and we've seen clear evidence of what I would describe as flybys. Like I said, we've had one tidal anomaly on the 21st as well, but only one. And only nothing I found that corroborates that. So I would likely expect some kind of tidal anomaly because of this alignment that occurred around about that time when I made the last video, around about the 17th, 21st of June, just gone, 2018. So I could understand there could be some tidal anomalies around that time. Certainly, like that, as we came into that period of that alignment, I was expecting certainly volcanoes to be going off, and obviously, you know, it wasn't long before then that the whole Hawaii thing really began to kick off. Second option is that the model's correct, but the shape of our solar system itself is much more bullet-shaped, much more conical. That as the sun is moving along and Earth is spinning around, I suppose it's spinning around like this in a spiral. And the other planets are spinning around, trailing behind in a spiral. As in, this is not my model. This is the model that Nassim Haramein, as far as I understand, pushed forward, and it was his model of the solar system actually moving that enabled me to kind of chart. Because I thought, how would this thing move? How would Planet X move over the sun if it moved over the sun? And I saw I've been paying a lot of attention to Nassim Haramein, and I saw some of the models that he'd offered, or this specific model. And if we apply that same model to our solar system, as Nassim Haramein as he describes, where he says that the Earth orbits. The Earth doesn't orbit the sun. The Earth orbits whatever the sun's orbiting. Because it's chasing behind the sun, it's actually effectively orbiting whatever the sun's orbiting. Now, if that is the case, and a big planetary mass is actually moving down the central aspect of that spiral, I could, therefore, from that perspective, understand how if that thing moving down the centre of the spiral of Earth, going round or trailing behind the sun, if this thing moving down the centre has got this orbiting mass, I could potentially understand how we could have had a close flyby. You know, don't forget, I'm not trying to offer you the answers here. I'm just trying to lay the information out and try and make more sense of it. Because then, if we're going to consider that the shape of the solar system is much, much more conical, that is the most likeliest scenario. Maybe some would say the most likeliest scenario is you're completely wrong. But I think that those of you who have been watching this long enough, seeing me saying just before every time we see a flyby, we're going to see another flyby, we're going to see another flyby, and then it comes up and it comes up. And some people say, but that was a silver thing, that was a jet tread, or that was a cloud, or that was an asteroid, or whatever you want to say to that. You know, once you've got that amount of flybys in the bag, you kind of starting to think, well, what is this? You know, what is this? And those of you that are there with me, you're seeing this thing. Many of you were getting really quite irate and angry with me, my not seeing the obvious. The whole system was on the side of the solar system that we've just come through. And anyway, this lovely subscriber, Christina Lamont, had I think it's Christina Lamont. I'm not opening my computer here and just going. I'm just I do most of my videos. I just have the computer here. If I need to drop in. But Christina and all the rest of the subscribers, that's where I was going with that. All the rest of the subscribers who work with me send me all this information. Please, sometimes I reach meltdown with it, and I lock down, and and just my own personal life things and the pressure I feel I place on myself, and I'm trying to sort of like, when every time I put a deadline out there on this thing, you're going to see it, they're going to do this, it tears me to pieces as well. It puts me under so much pressure. I've never ever experienced any pressure like I experienced whilst making these videos, talking about something which I feel is so taboo, and it confronts and destabilizes so much other research, like all those who follow climate change and everything else like that. And I do see, obviously, the climate is massively changing. I am with you totally on that. And I do totally believe that humanity has the biggest potential to change the course of what's happening right now by its actions. But I still also understand that there is something massive affecting this earth right now that we're not all taking into account. And humanity is a massive part of the karmic process, which I believe plays at the very core of Planet X. So I am on the same page in so many different ways with climate change. It's just that I don't want to attribute my entire philosophy into something that puts humanity primarily into the dock in this process. Because what happens if we took it to a higher perspective and we saw that humanity itself was being subverted, and that humanity was actually more the victim in this than the perpetrator? And this is where we have to be so careful. This is where we have to be so careful where we go with our prognosis in all of this. You know, we have to be so careful. Anyway, Christina sent me this shot, and this first shot is an image that we have seen so many times. I've seen countless shots of this. Whatever we might think, what you might suggest it is, might think it is, be it lens flare, be it whatever. We have seen this at so many different kind of like times in this over the last. Well, I've just seen over certain 2004, 2005. I don't know. I could just show you so many. I've seen so many. Let's take a look at this image, this next image, which was an ISS image, and I believe this is a recent image. And Christina had been getting shots. She'd been kind of staking out the kind of ISS, as many people do, before getting footage and downloading before anyone had a chance to properly edit it on NASA's end, and delete images, or suddenly someone notices something. And she got this just before I think it was another one of those shots that just came into view on the ISS footage, and then it cuts down. But whatever that is, I mean, that looks like a surface of a blue planet. If that's the blue Kachina, then it's looking likely that there's life on that planet, or certainly ocean. I mean, I just don't know what I'm looking at there, but it looks very Earth-like. Someone could turn around and say, "Oh, that's," someone recently said to me, "Oh, that's Jupiter." It's just like Jupiter, that size, that close. I just can't. We're just going into the implausible there, and because of all the sightings that we've had so far, whatever that is, I think it's the blue Kachina, the big, massive thing, the closest biggest, massive thing orbiting the Planet X system. And it doesn't make sense that we should get such a sighting, and yet there such a sighting is. And this shot here, I don't know the age of this shot. I don't know how recent this shot is. I think this was a much older shot, but I'm not too sure. It could have been a very recent shot. But is it possible that Planet X just did a flyby like this, that it really can just zap off? Because I mean, you can see the tail of that just going. You can just see the tail of that going. This thing, what appears, you can see the point where it appears to have come right round the sun there, spiraling underneath the sun. I mean, I don't understand the angles of this image, and I don't know what the date of this image, but the suggestion of this thing moving in this fashion This one here is this image here where we see this thing. Now this is a very famous image or piece of video footage where we've seen, where it's mostly classified on most YouTube vids. I'm not too sure of the original date. It's not recent, but this thing just seems to zap in. I believe it was caught by the maybe. Well, I'm not too sure even which footage. Soho, solar core feeding. She's put here. So. Now, like I say, I'm not too sure of the date of that, but this thing is zapping into the sun, drawing enormous amounts of energy. You can clearly see it doing a sort of like energy transference, and then it zaps back out again. Now, in any theory you want to look at HAARP or whatever it is, I always think it's a good idea to try and ascertain where the kind of fundamental energy is going to come from. Kind of try and do a bit of kind of like, you look at the fundamental laws of thermodynamics. I don't mean that in a complicated way. I mean that in the most simplest way. As in, you can't create or destroy energy. You can only move it one way or the other. And that thing is clearly moving in. You're seeing something big. I mean, there could be something much smaller in there, and that could be a massive force field going in, something smaller within a force field. We just don't know what's happening there, but it's taking in a massive amount of energy, clearly, and then zaps back out again. It's impossible for our little minds to believe that something could do that. And there it is from Soho, these images being caught for this thing doing it. And I believe she sent another image there of it occurring again, of this same thing occurring again. I think that was the last image she sent. Oh, well, she sent let's just stay with this energy transference, because if you're going to have a conspiracy theory like HAARP or something, and you're going to assume that someone's going to press a button on a dashboard and make an earthquake maybe happen in Fukushima, or maybe make the whole axis of the earth twist so all the oceans can displace and go one way or the other, you have got to be bringing into your equation where that energy is going to come from to do that. You know, CERN has its own nuclear power station next door. We have a sun. Your car's a fuel tank in the back or battery that's going to get power from a nuclear power station, from a coal-generated power station, or from solar panels, or from some kind of like some water-driven turbine, or whatever you're going to do. You need to be thinking about realistically bringing that into your equation. Don't just say HAARP and then not think about where the energy is coming from. I do think you know there is these ideas that maybe they could be tapping into the energy up in our in the ionosphere and up here. I get it. HAARP could be getting its energy from there. That's a feasible thing. Whether it could be getting enough energy to make the whole Earth's axis shift, to make 9.6 earthquakes happen. You know, I've considered many theories myself. I'm not poo-pooing HAARP or anything else like that, but we've got some massive geological and seismic things happening. This is a massive amount of energy coming in. We've got all the crazy shit happening that we're seeing, the storms, the volcanoes, the earthquakes, everything else. We've got these massive kind of things coming in. And we have just seen this anomalous movement of this twin-tail object doing some kind of crazy flyby. So we are left in this gives us the credence for me to turn around. I'll put what Christina's, she's got a little scientific kind of like explanation from it. I'd like to put what she kind of puts up there herself, because it's a lovely explanation of how she thinks there could be some kind of energy transference there that would potentially give this the ability to change its course or move around and navigate, to be piloted in some way. So where does this leave us now? Does this mean that my predicted crossing of the tail on early November, round about my 50th birthday, does that mean there's absolutely no possibility that this could? Because from all my current understanding of all my movements, I would say, by the model that I've understood, that this thing has told me that from its movements up until the flyby on the 21st of June, and that point of crossing the ecliptic plane, I was imagining for us was going to be round about the 7th the 7th of November on my chart, except that now I'm realising the spiraling chart it could be that we've got a much more conical shape in the solar system. It could be that this thing is navigating on its own, and if it's navigating on its own, it kind of means that, like I say, it's these patterns. It is deliberately showing us these patterns. Which side of the fence am I on at the moment? Which side of the fence are you on? Are you feeling that we've just gone past it? Or are you feeling that, we haven't had the tidal anomalies, like I say, apart from the 21st? Now, the first tidal anomaly, I seem to remember last year, was around about the 13th of August. Now, if this whole system moves 13 days, if we go round the sun in 1 year, and I'm assuming that whilst we go round the sun in 1 year, in that same movement, Planet X will have moved just equivalent of 13 days of Earth's movement in 1 year. So it travels very slowly. I'm estimating 10,000 miles an hour or slower, very, very slowly. Remembering Earth moves around 67,000 miles an hour. Now, so it's a very slow move. It's come very slowly over the top of our sun, very slowly. It's come very slowly underneath our sun, over the top of the sun, very slowly out, and it's on its way back out and south, down to the southern aspect. It's past the ecliptic plane, what I would have considered the ecliptic plane, which now I'm assuming is much, much more the ecliptic cone. And it's heading down through the ecliptic cone. And it leaves you in this place of, if this thing is self-navigating. Well, I'll tell you a funny thing. Was the first time I think I ever saw this now was on my way to see the eclipse I saw in Mongolia, which, off the top of my head, it's probably not that date now, but for some reason I've got the 27th, 29th, the 9th maybe, the 9th of March, the 29th of March, I don't know what it was, 27th of March maybe, 1997. The 27th of March 1997, for some reason, might have been the 9th of March, but whatever date it was, on the way we'd seen Comet Halley-Bopp, and that's what I thought it was. I thought it was Comet Halley-Bopp, and most would probably, most astronomers would tell me, that was definitely, Comet Halley-Bopp. I don't consider it was Comet Halley-Bopp. I believe that was the first sighting of Planet X, and all of these different sightings have pretty much been the same thing, going round and round and round, with us giving it lots and lots of different names. And I'm still from the old generation, the old school camp, where sort of like they were a rare thing that sort of like was seen kind of like hundreds, if not thousands, of years apart from Halley's Comet. But they came around about every, I don't even know, about 70 odd years or whatever it is. But that first sighting, I was on a mountain after seeing that. I was on a mountain in Mongolia with a friend on the night of the eclipse, and it had been a bit of a mad adventure getting there, because we weren't allowed to get into that area because we didn't have the kind of visas to get in that area, so it was all a bit flagging. And then the army had sort of like we'd found this army camp, and they told us that we had to stay in the army camp to watch this eclipse. And then we sneaked out of the army camp in the dead of night. We'd seen this mountain nearby, and we figured that would also be on the umbral path of this eclipse. So we'd slipped out under the cover of darkness, and we trekked off and gone up to the top of this mountain. And I fell asleep. I'd fallen asleep up there, wrapped up. We'd built a little fire or something up there, and we'd sort of I'd got this Chinese army jacket, and I'd wrapped up in this Chinese army jacket. And ironically, my father, bless him, I had a dream. My father had been very sick, and he had Crohn's disease, and the operation had gone a bit wrong, or something was a bit wrong, and he was nearly dying this night, and I didn't know that. And I'd had a dream, and I met him in the dream, and he said, I don't know what to do, son. And I said, don't you want to stay and see the big transition? I was like, you're here, don't you want to stay and see it? And And I said, you've only got everything to celebrate now. We're all here, we've all done it. You're standing here, you're willing to look at everything, your whole life here, you know what to do. I'd say stay, but do what you got to do. And then I woke up and I told my friend, I said, I just had a dream. I was sitting with my dad, and he was just sitting there, didn't know what to do, whether to leave or stay. And he was just like, I just had a mad dream. And I said, what did happen? And he said, I saw this massive asteroid, but it was being piloted. It was being flown. He had this whole thing about this massive asteroid being flown. And I only really remembered it. And I've had to kind of back away from the whole Dobbs model and the whole idea of this sort of thing, and and start thinking just about the messages that I was given when I first wrote Laughing Gas, and about how we come to this juncture, how we come to this wall, and nothing moves past this wall that is of war. And throw your depleted uranium, throw your hate, throw your racism, throw your discrimination. It was like throw all your depleted uranium and all your nuclear bombs. You will not scratch the surface of this. And it kind of largely, for me right now, this is coming back to, this is completely intelligent. That's what I'm feeling. It's completely intelligent. I'm just going to check. I'm still filming. This is completely intelligent, and it's being completely driven, and it's whether or not the universe is, the solar system is more conical, whether this thing really did do a total deviation. As if just put two fingers up to all the observation, and then just when you think you've got it, you're like, okay, I've got this thing, it just goes and does a complete and utter nonsensical deviation that doesn't make any sense to any of the other movements. Unfortunately, I feel like this thing is trying to give us a message. I'm on that camp. And it means if this thing is being navigated, if it is a massive thing in the sky that can fly around, that has this massive tail, and it can wreak havoc, and it is intelligently driven, then I have to assume that this really is what we have come to perceive as a dragon. It really is a dragon. And certainly that sighting on the 21st, it looks like a dragon. And other sightings I've been sent in that I'll try to add to this from other subscribers that have tried to show me this kind of pattern of some of the sightings that have come in this year. And thank you so much for all of those who have been really trying to make an effort to communicate with me and keep me going. Because I've been through a bit of a dark hour on this myself, and I've all my plans to come back here and try and enact something, and I got to mention, I feel like a total idiot talking about this. I know I'm kind of out there on my own with it. And it's my 50th birthday this year, and I can't invite everyone out for my 50th birthday party. But what I thought was, because of what's happened with Trump and what's happened with Brexit and what's happened on all sides, on what's happened with Europe and what's happened with all those that on the other side of Trump and everything else like that, and we have this massive division now going right through so much of our societies in the West. I really want to come to a place for looking at both sides and say, I don't know if you've heard that on our news, it's turned out that British banking passporting rights in Europe have been actually a $600 trillion US dollar movement of trade. So it's about 600 trillion in terms of bank movements because of basically the City of London and the banking centre that is the City of London. It's a 600 trillion, the EU is a $600 trillion business. Now this has all just been coming out recently because we finally, with the face of this is finally coming. Can you imagine the dent this is going to put inside of the US dollar and the pound and the euro if Britain loses these banking passport rights to access the European financial market? That's what we're talking about, walking away from. Now, this is also understanding that In any one day, we're talking about 970 billion euros that is moving as a result of the British banking system, the City of London's access into the European Union, 27 states buying and selling financial services, and are also lending massive amounts of money to countries like Greece. Now there's a big amount of maturity of this money that comes into maturity that should be paid in January, February, just after March, after the transition, even though November will be the point where Britain has to announce whether it's going to leave without a deal or whether we can make a deal. Now, if we leave without a deal, that is a two-way thing that's going to occur, because it means that Greece will have to, it won't be, how will Greece renegotiate its debt if it hasn't got passporting rights also to access the City of London? How would it navigate through that? So if it doesn't repay, what happens? It goes into kind of a state of administration, maybe lose its NATO membership, maybe, we just don't know how, get thrown into the WTO, where it's just super kind of taxes are placed on everything it wants to export, like what's happening with Turkey at the moment. It's being absolutely battered, like what's happening with Iran, where all these sanctions kick in. So we've created this situation that we're being told that all this money that's being lent to these countries like Spain and Greece has been coming from Brussels, but actually much of it's been coming from Brussels via London. And so this is all just turning into a train crash situation that we can see that Europe is being put under pressure here. It is being put under pressure to do something, to sign something, the same way Turkey's being put under pressure at the moment. And I'm of a mind, by some of the things that were said in the Chequers kind of like meeting between Trump and Theresa May, he kept saying, I don't want to trade with you. I just hope we can trade with you. That was kind of the line. I just hope we can trade with you. Like, I just hope that you can comply with our free trade needs that you will need to comply with, so I can trade with you, so America can trade with you, i.e. you sign. And, she dropped a little hint where she said, our transatlantic relationship is very important. Is that an indication that it's the transatlantic trade and investment partnership that we're all getting dragged into? Remember, Canada signed the equivalent with the Pacific Partnership, the Pacific Trade Agreement, or whatever it's called. Now, they have become the most sued nation on the planet as a result of signing that same agreement. And if we signed that same agreement, you have you have no sovereign rights left, because everything can be undermined in these intellectual property courts that undermine any kind of court system in any country that signs up to this agreement. You've sold yourself. You have no sovereign rights left once you enter this agreement. And so this is what we've got to think about. And so if all of these things are going to kick in, around about November, we're going to see massive fear about anyone keeping their money in dollars, in euros, and in pounds, because of the destabilising as a result of that type of fear-mongering, to take that much of a cog out of these markets all at once, and then at the same time kick all these massive Iranian sanctions in at that time. They're going to try and create a massive amount of fear in the market. So they're going to drive people to put their money into things like gold and other kind of like other equities, other forms of even just by taking all the interest away out of just keeping your money in the bank. It's just another way to force people to take their money out of kind of pounds and dollars and all the rest of it, and force them into kind of buying properties to rent, buying acquisitions, buying things that they can move their money around in, because there's not going to go any interest in the bank. So there's a massive force of speculation people are being forced to speculate money, fear-mongering in the sort of in the markets, up and down, to keep driving the money to be moved, to generate more money, to pay off all this kind of interest of this massive debt. And suddenly we've got a potential kind of this fabricated, this story that's being thrown onto us, which has been created through Brexit. And we're told that people voted to leave and voted for this scenario. But can you understand that if this whole thing was an attempt on Trump's side, on Brexit side, not to say that is what's happening, but potentially imagine if that is what's happening, and this thing has been an orchestration. You can understand that. Was there anyone on the Trump side that wanted to join TTIP or wanted to join an organisation which you're going to give all your sovereignty away? Was there anyone on the Brexit side that wanted to give all their sovereignty away? Most people on Brexit were thinking, as I was understanding, that Europe wanted to join TTIP and that they were fleeing Europe because it wanted to join these big agreements. But imagine if it's the other way around. Imagine if Europe didn't want to join this and everything had been turned upside down. So what I'm saying is that we are in this situation where we all need to come back to our raw intention right now. What were our intentions in all of this? What was your intentions? You wanted to be sovereign. You wanted to be self-governing. You wanted to have autonomy over your lives. You wanted to have a government that represents you. We all want the same thing, surely. To me, the European Union was a way that we could all come together and have these trade arrangements because we were all coming in together and we were respecting each other's sovereignty. The whole thing was about respecting each other's sovereignty, working together and floating a currency that could sit on all of our combined union, that we wanted to work together, and that would be very powerful, that we could all sit at the table in peace and negotiate rather than sitting on the far side of battle of a battlefield fighting it out. It seemed to be an evolutionary step for me. It seemed to be what we finally kind of pulled back after the Second World War. Finally, instead of all this profit for weapons companies, we'd actually got something out of all of that. We'd actually had a union where all the countries came together in peace. And suddenly we're in this place where we're being ripped apart. We don't know which side of the fence. Everything's thrown up in the air. And we need to come back now just to our raw intentions. What were your raw intentions in this at the very beginning? And to me, this Planet X, Nibiru, this great dragon, is coming in and is forcing our hand. To me, it's showing us. I'm more reminded that it is dragon, that this thing has showed us a pattern and showed us a way to perceive it and is now putting the pressure on. We can see what's coming in and we can think of it as an environmental maneuver. But what I'm telling you is like you look at Hawaii. Hawaii is the kind of geopolitical kind of like centerpiece in terms of America's might. It's 80-90% of all its long-range missiles are sitting in Hawaii. Then you've got Hawaii also as the main testing ground for Monsanto. Hawaii in itself is the tip of a massive volcano sort of mountain that goes deep under the oceans. You can imagine as the axis of the earth wobbles, the only thing that stops Hawaii collapsing down through the actual basin floor is the oceans that stop that affect the fundamental displacement of Hawaii sitting on the crust. That it doesn't just drop through. It's made of magma that is solidified, floating on a sea of magma. With all the oceans around it, it affects the displacement, because no way can a mountain be that big and that high and protrude that far above a mantle without collapsing through, unless its displacement is affected by an ocean around it, which changes that displacement, that changes those displacement factors, that it can actually sit there and not drop through. But you can imagine, as the oceans are moving away in these massive anomalies, we can understand that the pressure of its own its own mass sitting on that plate is being massively affected by the movements of our axis. And yet, what is the greatest pressure on that whole land right now? What is attempting to push that below and to cease its existence? And if that did that, if the volcanic center, remember, Everest fits into Hawaii, as in the entire kind of volcano mountain there is, it fits into Hawaii 140 times, just to give you an idea how big it is. 130, 140 times, it's enormously bigger and enormous, and the mountain can only go so far before it collapses through the mantle again. No one really knows, lots of different estimations, but you can understand when our oceans, when the Pacific Ocean is swaying one way and the other way, and you get little points where this thing is just, the crust is much more exposed to the sheer weight that's sitting on it. And remember, the summit, the top of that volcano at the moment that is pouring out magma through these fissures at an enormous rate, is dropping. The summit is dropping 2.5 meters every day.
As much as 2.5 meters or so,
every
and
day.
each drop.
Well, it was I'll put the article up or the narration that I was following from one of the earthquake observation centers, USG. I can't remember which one it is, but the I can't remember what it is now. But I'll put it up anyway when that last came in. But you have to think about where that pressure's coming from. So, if we now think that this thing coming around about November, and we're seeing all of these things seem to be coming into play around this point, we don't know really whether this is just a free-flowing planet or whether this was really a dragon. But like I say, for me, if it is a dragon, and this thing is coming round, it's asking us something. And you have to really think about your intentions in this right now. And so, November, people need to come together around about November, because November, in my opinion, as I'm understanding it, in November, this thing will present us. It will be like, consider it a massive show. Someone recently said to me, they said, Dave, you've got a show. Every time this comes around, you've got a show. Consider this just a massive show. It's the tail of the dragon. That's the name of the show. It's the tail of the dragon. And at this point, whatever corrections, that if we're far away where we should be in terms of what this thing wants from us, because I'm of a mind that this planet belongs to this thing, because this thing is the most powerful player. And what this thing takes away, what it doesn't like. So what would have to go in this equation? Say really this whole play out with Trump and Theresa May and Brexit and everything else like that was a massive attempt just to drive us into an agreement where we surrender everything we are over to a darker force. We surrender. We give up. And the high gods and said, look, you've got no place here. Humanity have surrendered. Back off. They have surrendered. They have given in to us. Move away. Humanity is Earth, and humanity is our planet now. You have no say in it. The humans have spoken. So there is that side. But imagine if that is, from a higher perspective, that is not how the higher forces that are in place see it right now. Imagine if they see it from another perspective and say, well, no, there seems to be a lot of human beings that are shouting out for sovereignty and that sort of stuff. They haven't voted to give all their power away and surrender completely to a darker force, which is... Now imagine... We don't really know. All of you out there are solid Trump supporters. You think it's all going to be the right way. All of you out there on the same side of the fence are solid kind of like Brexit supporters who think, yeah, this is good. Europe done it. Blah blah blah. We've got to join the Queen. Blah blah blah. It's all going to be fantastic. Or whatever you're trying to achieve with your Brexit ambitions and WTO. We're joining the WTO. I mean, I went out to Seattle to a WTO protest, and from my account of what the WTO does to countries, they get smacked with enormous tariffs, and they get raped for their resources. because they barely have any recognised rights. They join these big kind of trade agreements, but these trade agreements mean that they can be ripped apart by another country's unbelievable line of credit. They haven't got hope in hell, and they just fall into these categories where they're fed all this money, which goes onto their, so. Just saying, so I think I'm just waffling on a whole load of nonsense here, and I don't mean to sound, because I'm kind of going around in circles here, trying to say what I'm trying to say, but that November time is a point where you will really need to be demonstrating which side of the fence you're on, or as we approach that time. What I'd like to do is organise an AGM of a political party that people could come and join, and acknowledge, stand. That's why I create political parties, so I can stand neutral. So I am affiliated. I've consciously affiliated to something where I've said I'm not part of this, I'm not part of that, and I'm not just sitting on the fence with no direction, waiting, just thinking, well, I'll just go with the best option here and that sort of stuff. I'm kind of making it clear. A lot of people just are not really seeing what's happening here. There's something bigger going on. They're not really aligned to any kind of anything. They're just kind of floating along in it. And what I'd say to you is, be clear what you wanted out of this, because there's going to be, and there is, much karma. I hate to say it, but the depleted uranium that has been dumped on Iraq in the form of depleted uranium bomb shells, for a crime we know that Iraq didn't do. There's a lot of karma. And where does this karma land? Where does that karma go? Whose karma is that? Is that really humanity's karma, or is humanity being subverted? Imagine if that wasn't humanity's karma. Imagine if that was the subversion thrown onto humanity to take advantage of the young soldiers that join the army and get them to do heinous crimes below the table of any level of any degradation or any kind of war we've ever seen, and to drive a karmic debt. Imagine if that karmic debt wasn't really humanity's. Imagine if humanity itself was being subverted by something far darker. Now, if, say, you didn't go to war and we didn't rise up and we didn't do what their agenda was and go into all-out World War III, all-out hate, all-out fascism, all-out divide and all-out conquer, say we didn't go into go down that road, and we decided to take a different route, what would happen? What would happen if you made that statement that you didn't want that? You hadn't asked for that. You hadn't voted for that. This was thrown onto you. How would that affect the outcome if that happened in England and people were to question and turn around and say, we didn't want that. That wasn't our desire. We didn't, and to acknowledge that, to consciously acknowledge that, would that change the outcome? Because at the moment it seems that Brexit is a massive vote for everything that is responsible for the depleted uranium that was dumped on Iraq. Surely it gives power to every part of that regime. Surely. It just totally empowers in all of that. Or are we saying that we didn't do it for that? We did it for another reason. We did it because we wanted to be sovereign, and that the Queen could give us sovereignty with all her weapons? Is that what it's about? You've got some serious intention tracking to do here. Now, we'll just do nothing. But You know, we say there's nothing we can do, but I promise you, if that karma has to go somewhere. That was, as I'm understanding, the only agreement that was ever given to our souls when they entered into our spirit, when they entered into the plane of earth, was do as thy will. And pay thy karmic dues. There was always an understanding that if you entered into this realm, you would pay your karmic dues. You know, you might think it's do as thy will is the whole of the law. But actually, it is the whole of the law, except that to pay thy karmic dues makes up the shortfall of where that fell short, of where Crowley fell short, in my opinion. That we are karmically accountable. And this is going to come and settle that karmic debt. What we cannot settle, this will settle. And I know that, I feel that this is the message being given to Greece and all these countries that have taken from this massive debt, bitten into this kind of massive amount of money that's been afforded to them. But they've placed themselves in a very compromising situation where they are going to be forced into signing an agreement. And if they don't sign that agreement, then for someone like Greece or whoever it is, they are going to be at odds with NATO. And remember, that's another oceanic agreement, just like TTIP, transatlantic, or the Pacific, partnership. It's all oceanic agreements, and that's what this is about. That's what this is really all about. You see, humanity is just a victim here. That's all it is. It's a victim being assaulted by a story that's being pushed into us, and it's being transmitted as a belief system into us. And we just got to evolve that now. We've got to evolve. We haven't got to revolt against that. We don't need a revolution. We need to evolve this situation and become stronger and better. And this will help us in this transit. So we cross the table, in my opinion, we've crossed the tail. We have the tail of the dragon in early November. And then on the other side of it, when we come back round again, then we have to face the dragon. And the dragon will come to us from the sun. If it happens on this cycle, maybe it will happen, maybe it will be a year later. Maybe this thing is like a dragon and I can let go of these timelines now. Although I feel these timelines have been very important because I feel as if this is how it's communicated with us. And for all the messages that I've received and all the messages, I couldn't have done any of my work without all the other video makers that have done all their work. You know, we've all worked together to try and get an overview here, not an understanding, but an overstanding. So, another long one. I know I'll harp on. I'll try and clean it up a little bit and try and take out a few bits where I've repeated myself and some of the gaps. But overall, the time of this video will be. It should come out about the time of the first real tidal shift that we should be getting. And by the time I edit this, it's the 18th today, but the first big tidal shift that we come into proximity of Planet X should be, I reckon, 13 days after the 13th, so around about the 26th of August. And I'd imagine this will be around about the time when this video will be ready. And so hopefully by the time not hopefully, but if we're understanding the movements of this thing, and we're going to start working ourselves around it, and we've got some understanding on it, hopefully that will be around about that time. Because if it is around about that time, it means that we are in a position to understand what we will need to do and where we will need to be and how we need to navigate through this. And I haven't come back to England to try and save myself or anything. I've come back to England, you know what I mean? I think, what am I saving myself for, If my own country can't see this and can't respond to this, you know what I mean? I'm an Englishman, I don't want to be part of that anymore. I'd rather go with a lot of it. I'd rather go with everyone. I don't want to be just a remnant of a race that's just remembered for its heinous crimes. I don't want to be one of those, just random. I'd rather be in part of a country that takes a stand and tries to change this record and tries to learn from its mistakes before it's too late and correct this mistake itself. But it has set you an ultimatum. It's not hard to correct the problems here, is it? You just have to take out a few fundamental ingredients, really. You know, you're going to hold Europe to ransom? Okay. You do this any way you like it, but, you know, take on a dragon. You know, our queen. Her coat of arms, the dagger that killed, you know, on the City of London, that killed Wat Tyler. The people, representing the people. Good luck, whatever you do. Thank you. Thank you for all of you.